Hey guys, Michael here from michaelsherlock.com. It's July 22nd, 2011. As you can hear, I'm at the beach today. Unfortunately, today is a blisteringly hot and sunny day, and I've already been burnt this week, so I have to take it a little bit careful today. So it's about 1 o'clock right now, the peak of the sun's rays, and instead of getting radiated even more, I'm decided to take a little break. I'm going to go inside. I'm at my hotel room right now. Maybe I'll hit the indoor pool a little bit later after this, and then get on with the rest of my day. But since I haven't made a video in a while, and I'm trying to get some downtime right now, I thought this is the perfect time to talk about some of the new Apple stuff that happened a couple of days ago. Now, normally I do recaps, and you guys always watch those. Since this is a couple days later, it's going to be more of an analysis of these updates, because that's just a more appropriate video to make at this point. So first and foremost, macOS 10 Lion was released. Review is coming shortly out. Like I said, I'm on vacation, so I can't really do it now. But if you're interested in dual booting Lion, I already have a video on that. And I've already been using the betas for a couple weeks now, so I'm pretty comfortable with Lion at this point. Interesting note, 1 million copies sold on the first day. Those are 3.7 gigabyte downloads from the Mac App Store at $29.99. Basically, Lion is a very affordable update and has a lot of cool features, but I'll get more into that in my review, which again will be coming shortly. So the first thing I want to talk about is the new MacBook Air. This is a Sandy bridge with Core i5 processors, backlit keyboards, and Thunderbolt. The 11.6-inch model, there are two of them at $1,000 and $1,200. The lower end model is 1.6 gigahertz, got a 64 gigabyte SSD and 2 gigs of RAM. The more expensive one bumps that up to a 128 gigabyte SSD and 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, with these MacBook Airs, I highly suggest, if you're going with that low-end model, that you're going to definitely want to update to 4 gigabytes of RAM. And of course, the MacBook Airs will be shipping preloaded with Lion. The 13.3-inch model, which is something that I'm actually eyeing for my next computer, comes in a 1.7 gigahertz model with 128 gigabytes of SSD storage and 4 gigabytes of RAM. That's $12.99. For $15.99, basically it's the same, but you get 256 gigabyte SSD. One cool thing about that higher end model, if you want to spend another $100, bringing it up to $16.99, you can actually get a 1.8 gigahertz Core i7 CPU, which is actually very significant in terms of performance gains. So if you're looking at that higher end 13-inch laptop, please take my word for it. Spend the extra $100. Not only would you get some extra clock speed, but you're going from Core i5 to Core i7, which is a significant update in itself. Now, let's just talk about performance for a second. Again, I said I was eyeing these. The 13-inch MacBook Air is a 100% performance gain in the Geekbench score. It actually scored a 5,860. The 11-inch model, even more amazing, is a 149% increase from 2,024 to 5,040. What does this really mean? Well, the high-end MacBook Pro of 2010 actually scored a 5,423. So these MacBook Airs, Geekbench is just a way to get, raw power information. But when it comes down to it, just gauging by these numbers, the MacBook Air can compete with the MacBook Pro. So clearly, what I'm trying to get at is the MacBook Pro, or the MacBook Air, I should say, is a very powerful computer. Of course, we all know it's very small form factor, and that's really the reason why it's so notable. But it does pack a significant performance into the box, especially because it's coming with SSDs instead of hard drives. Performance is just going to be really good right out of the box. One thing to note about the MacBook Air, again, there's a $1,000 model. This is kind of important because there are no more plastic MacBooks. Basically, the MacBook Air, Apple is now positioning that to be their low-end laptop, whereas, so essentially the MacBook Pro is for the more power users, and the MacBook Air, although extremely powerful in its own right, is designed for the average Joe consumer, as that plastic MacBook has gone away. The next significant revamp, the Mac Mini. The biggest thing about this is there's no more optical drive. So they've cut it out, and what's actually interesting is the Mac Mini server, if I remember correctly, it does have dual hard drives. The standard models don't have dual hard drives, but they actually have room inside the case for a second hard drive, although a SATA port which you need is kind of much harder to come by, but that's just something to say. Also, iFixit gave it a very favorable rating. I believe off the top of my head it was an 8 out of 10 in terms of upgradability and maintenance. So it's actually really easy to get inside there, replace the memory, check out all those internal components. So the standard models, there's a 2.3 gigahertz Core i5 with a 500 gigabyte hard drive with 2 gigs of RAM. Back down to that $599 price point. We remember that when they revamped or refreshed the design of the Mac Mini, it went up to $699. Now it's back down to $5. The next model at $799 is a 2.5 gigahertz Intel Core i5, 500 gigabyte hard drive as well, 4 gigs of RAM. But what's cool is it doesn't use that Intel integrated graphics like the lower end model does. It actually has an AMD Radeon HD 6630, I believe. That's again $799. The server model comes with a 2 gigahertz Core i7, dual 500 gigabyte hard drives, and 4 gigabytes of RAM. Again, that'll ship with Lion's server for $1,000. What's interesting is the 2.3 gigahertz model, that low-end $599 Mac Mini, is a 50% price or a 50% performance jump from last year's model to $5,396, which is actually pretty close to those MacBook Air specs that we were talking about before. I think the Mac Mini is an interesting computer because it has HDMI out. I think this is very, it packs a lot of power, so you can easily use this as your primary machine. But what Apple has done here is they're making it your primary machine to get you into the Mac environment. So then, once you really experience Mac OS X, especially with Lion, and you think to yourself, wow, I really like this, well, now you can go ahead and get up to a more powerful machine, maybe an iMac, Mac Pro, even a MacBook. And from there, you can repurpose the Mac Mini as a home theater PC. Again, I'm looking at the MacBook Air as my laptop for college, although I'm probably going to go with a quad-core MacBook Pro when I really think about it. But the Mac Mini, although, like I said, powerful in its own right, is also an extremely good home theater PC option. Now, the final thing that they updated was the 27-inch cinema display. It's still at $999, I believe, but it has some benefits. Of course, it's using Thunderbolt, but it also has a FaceTime HD camera, 2.1 speaker system, 3 USB ports, 1 FireWire 800 port, a Gigabit Ethernet port, and actually a second Thunderbolt port, so you'll be able to daisy chain maybe a second cinema display if that's what you're into. You can daisy chain hard drives, although those are actually quite expensive at this point. But the cinema display, you know what, let me just take a break for a second and give you my 2 cents on the cinema display. A lot of people bash Apple for having a display that costs so much, $1,000 for a 27-inch. You can go online, go to tech bargain websites and such, and find 27-inch displays for much less. The problem is they're not as high quality. Now, don't call me an Apple fanboy. It's widely recognized that for color reproduction, for graphic designers, for serious video editing, you want something that's going to show you actual color and something that's going to be high quality and have a lot of resolution for you to work with. The cinema displays do that. So if you have $1,000 and you're a serious user, the cinema display is a very high quality thing, especially because, now it's running off of Thunderbolt, which is obviously the way of the future. So those are my 3 cents on the MacBook Air, Mac Mini, and cinema display. My 4th cent, if you will be saved for the Lion review, which will be coming up shortly. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, like my analysis. I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. Do you think the MacBook Air is as strong of a competitor as, I just proclaimed it as? Or do you think it's just a hype, just a gimmick, and will be gone in the next couple years? I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. I think I am going to hit up the indoor pool, but I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day, guys.